Hey, everybody, this is Chris McCabe, co creator and sometime host of the Seller Velocity Conference, which this year is in New York, May 1st and 2nd. Some of you already have tickets, and you're listening in to prepare for the wonderful conference we've got coming up in 2 days in New York, for 2 days in New York. Well Insurance is one of our sponsors. Sorry for tripping over your intro there. How you doing,
All right.
Matt?
I'm good. How are you, Chris?
Doing pretty good. We've been talking about the conference a lot, of course. Thank you for your support. You've supported us in the past. You'll be doing it again. And I just thought we could run through, since insurance is a hot topic right now for Amazon sellers and business owners. It always should be a hot topic, in my opinion. But it's definitely a hot topic. I thought we could run through some real life claim scenarios that you've been seeing with your business, because likely you will talk to people or they'll have questions about these types of issues during the conference in New York, and maybe you'll have a chance to interact with people before you even get to New York and answer some questions ahead of time. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. Did you want to start with a couple examples?
Sure. First off, I'm Matt Lovell with Well Insurance. I've been in the insurance business about 23 years now. We started our e-commerce division about 7 or 8 years ago, and we've been in the space, that long and very active in the space. But a lot of people hear insurance and they think, not really something that I need, not really something I want to talk about. But insurance is very important, and especially from a product's liability standpoint for someone who's selling their own label with brand and importing that from overseas. As the importer of record, a business essentially assumes all of the product's liability of that product at that point, because you can't subrogate back against a foreign manufacturer. So they've got to be classed correctly, et cetera. But yeah, we've got some interesting claim scenarios. I talked to a couple of adjusters with some different carriers that we represent, and I said, give me some real life examples of products liability that's happened, and how how those cases ended up, and all that. So I'll start with the first one. Was a seller that was selling light bulbs. From looking at it just on the outside, light bulbs seem pretty low from a products liability standpoint. However, with this case, there was the filament in the light bulb had been tampered with in the factory in China, and those were they became very faulty. And
Right.
one of those was installed in a light in the church, and it shorted out and caught fire and caused the church to burn down.
Oh my God.
That resulted in property damage. The policy paid out about 800,000 to pay for the property damage in the church. So there's that's a small one that you don't think about a light bulb that you're selling a light bulb. What kind of liability do I have with a light bulb?
Right.
Another one's a bed frame. We had a customer that was selling a bed frame. Again, a low risk from a product's liability standpoint, but there were some sharp edges on the corners of the bed frame. A customer walked by it, got too close, kicked it, cut their Achilles. That led to permanent damage to the nerves in the foot.
Wow.
Sued the company and ended up with a $2.3 million judgment against them. So, again, a case of something that's pretty low risk. The company didn't do a lot to be negligent, but it came out of the factory as, with sharp edges, and boom, there you go.
Right.
We've got another one
which could happen to any. I mean, like you said, that could happen to anybody. Obviously, you're responsible as the seller of record on Amazon for the due diligence and for inspection of product, both in China and here. Having some samples sent to you, but it could still happen to any shipment.
My word of advice on anybody that's doing any import of private label products is do your safety testing. The factory may be safety testing it, but get a sample in, send it to the third party testing, let them look at the product, let them see if it's got any lead paint in it, let them see, let them run that through their gamut of tests and get that certificate. That way that you know that I've done my due diligence, I've done my homework, I've tried to keep this product as safe as possible for the public to, that way if you do get into one of these situations where you're in court being sued because your product, caused injury or property damage, that you've got something to go back on and say, look, we did our property, we did our proper testing. Here are the results right here. So that's
Yeah,
safety testing is a big deal in the private label,
and
area.
not skimping on it, right?
That's right.
Not not grabbing some random company that says they do it just because they're at the
Yeah.
bottom of the cost list, price
That's
list,
you,
right?
you get what you get what you
Yeah.
pay for in this space, and that's that's not always a good thing. So,
So when
um,
you're at conferences like ours, I mean, somebody walks up to you, starts asking you questions. Is it kind of along the lines of what you've mentioned so far, or do they sound like they're just scratching the surface on, do I even need this? Is it basic, or is it advanced? Does it depend on how many years they've sold on Amazon?
insurance is something that a business initially starting out needs to have. You only have to have one product in the marketplace for something to happen, and for that product to injure somebody, and you're involved in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Now, whether you're negligent or not is one thing, but
Hmm.
you're at least going to have some attorney defense costs and legal fees, and those can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars very quickly. Just trying to defend the business, to even get to court to see if you're negligent or not. So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, and that's something that the insurance policy typically will provide is defense cost.
And have these policies changed in nature over I mean, I've known you for several years at this point. Over the last 2, 3 years, is it fundamentally different from the 2, 3 years before that? Or are there any 2024 updates that you need to make people aware of, like, right away?
No, not necessarily from a coverage standpoint.
Hmm.
Amazon came in a few years ago and started implementing their own terms of service. That they were actually trying to enforce those. If you're a seller and you have over $10,000 in sales, you're required by their terms of service to have an insurance policy. Send them a certificate. You've got to have $1 million in coverage. Have the product's liability coverage.
Hmm.
Um, they're doing that to try and put a little bit of that responsibility and exposure back on the seller, away from Amazon.com.
Right. Of course. What other kinds of trends and tricks are you seeing in terms of questions you might answer, problems people might have when they're trying to make these types of decisions?
We have a lot of sellers that are shipping containers, full of products over, and they're buying their ocean cargo insurance from their freight forwarder or from whoever's taking care of sending that shipment over.
Hmm.
We typically have a nice little policy that takes care of the shipping container coverage while it's in transit to the U.S., whether that's air or ocean. Also, it takes care of it while it's in port, while it's being domestically transported to the 3PL. And then that can also pick up some coverage for the 3PL or private warehouse or whatever that might be.
Right.
Those are pretty slick little policies that a lot of people don't realize that are out there, that you don't have to purchase it on a per shipment basis. It picks up a lot of bells and whistles that those
Hmm.
freight forwarder policies don't offer.
Yeah, and I kind of expected at some point Amazon would start sending messages to sellers. In order to sell these types of products, you need this kind of insurance, and until you prove it, we're suspending your seller account.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's it's coming. It's coming. It's
it
just a
hasn't
matter of time.
happened, yeah, on a widespread. But it makes people like me wonder, right? Because we're seeing this type of messaging every day, and sometimes
Right,
out of left field. Typically, these days we hear from brands who say our top selling product is down, and then we look at the message, and it'll lots of
right.
compliance documentation focus. Send us XYZ, and not everyone has it handy.
The
Or
problem with Amazon suspending people for not having insurance is when they do it, it's not going to be randomly and it's not going to be one or two accounts.
right.
They're going to suspend thousands of accounts at a time.
Hmm.
And at that point, everybody's going to be scrambling to get the correct insurance. And there's only really a handful of carriers that will write the e-commerce insurance. And so it's going to really be a backlog on the agents and the companies that are trying to write this. And it may take longer than, typically we can turn one around in 24 hours.
Right.
It may take 2 weeks to get someone, a quote to get that over to them when that happens. And it's just a matter of time. Amazon is they're big enough and they can do what they do. We know how they react to things, and when they do, it's typically not a good reaction. It seems like.
There's an analogous case right now in the UK with VAT payments. A lot of UK sellers are suspended now pending completion of their VAT documentation. Some of them, of course, typical Amazon, they already submitted it. They suspend the account and tell them to submit it again.
Right.
There's all, like you said, when there's a huge purge or a batch of people all at once. I mean, it's tough for a provider maybe to do 600 of these at the same time.
That's right.
Same thing with Amazon. If they're suspending hundreds of people, then they have to go through all of those again.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have a hard time vetting those coming back through just to make sure that they are in compliance at that point too.
Right. Right. Do people ever mention that in conversation with you, or they're just like, I hope
Oh,
that
sure.
never happens?
No, I
Yeah.
talk to sales, especially when when they start to scale. They really look at the insurance from a different perspective, not only to protect the business, but they can't afford, especially if their primary breadwinner is Amazon. They can't afford to be suspended for
Oh
a
yeah.
couple of days because their revenues are crazy lost in that downtime.
Yeah. Yeah. And not to keep referring to this example, but what we're seeing in the UK with this VAT stuff, they didn't separate big accounts from small ones or anything like that. I mean,
Right.
some of them have hundreds of thousands of pounds just
That's
in
right.
free fall floating around somewhere. And it's crazy that somebody flips a switch and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
this is due by the end of the week, or you have to send us an appeal to keep your account open while we sort this out. Some people don't respond right away. And then they're left scrambling, like you said.
That's that's just a case of Amazon being Amazon, and that's how they operate in a lot of instances.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there any other examples you wanted to go through while we're here?
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
a couple more.
Mm-hmm.
We had an importer that was selling a room spray, or aromatherapy room spray.
Okay.
It was imported from India. It was sold on Walmart.com.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow in the chemical complicated, however, when this was being made in the product in the manufacturing facility over in India, there were some toxic chemicals or toxic crystals that were getting into the formulation, and this started to poison children. About 3 children actually died from inhaling the toxic
Oh no.
crystals.
Yeah.
The Walmart was involved in the lawsuit. The seller was involved in the lawsuit. They ended up that they found the seller and Walmart negligent. The seller was sued or had an $8 million judgment against them, and
Mm,
Walmart had about a 30 to $40 million judgment against them for allowing the products to be sold on their site.
right.
So
Wow.
that's a nasty one there. A lot of people come to us with these higher risk products, and they don't understand why their insurance is expensive. Well, it's because of scenarios just like this that
Yeah.
if your product has a high products liability, you know, exposure, the insurance company wants to charge a fair price to offset that that risk they're assuming. So
Yeah.
um,
And those big cases make the news. I mean, that makes
yeah,
everyone pay attention, not just federal regulators, not just consumer advocates. I mean,
that's
Amazon
right.
itself or other sellers. I mean, every stakeholder in the system is paying more attention when, these are the kinds of articles that pop up in everyone's news
Right.
feed, right?
You know what really triggered Amazon to actually start requiring the insurance was there were two cases. Of course, the hoverboards were one of them.
Hoverboards, yep.
The lithium batteries were exploding, causing fires in houses. A
Hmm.
bunch of houses were burning down.
Yeah.
And then there was a dog leash, a retractable dog leash. The woman was walking her dog. Somehow there was a failure
Yep.
up near the clasp on the dog. It retracted, hit her in the eye, and blinded her in the eye.
Yep.
And so that was those were the two cases that really Amazon said, wait a minute, we need to require our sellers to have some insurance on file, just in events like that.
For sure. Those are the types of things that resonate and stick in people's minds
Yes,
long enough for them to change processes and policies, which,
that's right.
Amazon will do it when they're properly motivated by events like that.
Yep.
They'll get
But
it in gear, right?
But again, some sort of safety testing might have caught the dog leash problem.
Yeah.
But batteries are batteries, and
Hmm.
those are going to be what they are. But
Yep.
the safety testing would have definitely saved Amazon and that seller a huge lawsuit.
For sure. Well said. Well, Matt Lovell of Well Insurance, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Looking forward, of course. Thank you again for your support of the conference. Number one, number two.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to seeing you in New York, early May. Hopefully, we have some warm temperatures. I'm sure it'll be a lot warmer than it is today. But I used to live in Manhattan actually, and spring can be quite lovely. So
Nice.
looking forward to that happening this year.
Well,
Um, and
Chris,
thank.
we appreciate you having us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. I will be talking to you soon.